The House Republican leader, John Boehner of Ohio. Welcome, sir.
Morning, George.
Well, you heard Congressman Davis, so you've probably been hearing from him all week long. He says this is a disaster coming, the worst political environment for Republicans since Watergate. Is he right?
Well, there's no question that the environment for Republicans is a difficult one. What I've been preaching to my colleagues now for over a year is that we have to be the agents of change. We have to prove to the American people we can deliver the change that they want, the change that they deserve. And whether the issue is rising cost of health care, rising cost of gasoline prices, food prices, we have an agenda that will deliver that change that Americans want. And all they've gotten from the Democrats are a lot of broken promises.
But meanwhile, you say that's the agenda you want, but nothing is happening on Capitol Hill. You've lost 3 straight special elections, and Congressman Davis and others say that unless you divorce yourself from President Bush, there's no way you're going to be able to protect yourself in November.
George, elections are about the future. They're not about the past. George Bush isn't on the ballot in November. And I think it's really important that what we've got to do is to show the American people that we learned our lesson after the 2006 elections. We've worked hard over the last 15 or 16 months to hold the Democrats accountable and to develop an agenda of issues that Americans really care about. And they care about the rising cost of food and the rising cost of gasoline. They're not getting any solutions from the Democrats who control Congress. Republicans can deliver real change, and we have to prove that to them.
But do you have to follow basically the strategy that Senator McCain is starting to follow now on the presidential campaign trail and show where he is different from President Bush on issues like global warming, on issues like torture, on spending?
George, listen, I've had my differences with President Bush, whether it was the 2002 Farm Bill, a few other issues along the way. But again, this is not about the past. This is about the future. And I think if Republicans get serious about showing people what we would do, what we would deliver for them, as opposed to what the Democrats promised and delivered nothing, we can deliver a real energy policy. We're going to roll it out next week that says that we need to conserve more. We need biofuels. We need alternative sources of energy. But we also have to be serious about having nuclear energy, and we need to be able and willing to go produce more oil and gas here in America in an environmentally sensitive way. And we can do that. Democrats have said no, no, no. We've got a Pelosi premium now at $1.40 a gallon. That's how much gasoline has increased since she took over. They've done nothing.
Well, I mean, that could just easily be called the Bush premium.
They've done nothing to help us produce more energy here at home.
There's a meeting of all the House Republicans. You've called a meeting of all the House Republicans on Tuesday to go over the current troubles facing the Republicans. Some inside your party have suggested that you should resign in the wake of these special election losses. Will you?
Listen, I've been a reformer since the day I got to Congress. I took on our own leadership back in my early years here. I worked to reform the Farm Bill and freedom to farm in 1996. I worked with Ted Kennedy and others to reform our pension laws to protect people's pensions. I worked with Ted Kennedy and others to deliver a real change in federal education policy that will help all Americans have a better chance at a good education. I know what needs to be done to deliver real reform here in Washington.
No, you're staying.
I'm staying. Listen, my job is to help bring our members together and lead them and show the American people that we can deliver the kind of changes that they deserve.
How about, there's no secret that you've had your differences with the campaign chair, Congressman Tom Cole, over the whole strategy of the campaign, the way that the campaign committee has been run. Is it time for him to go?
Tom and I had a very good meeting on Friday. We had several conversations last week.
Frank and constructive?
Frank and constructive and positive. And I expect we're going to have more conversations next week. We know the kind of changes that need to be...
So he's staying as well?
He's staying. And we know the kind of changes that need to be made in order to help our members and help our candidates go out there and do their best in a very difficult environment.
The last 2 special elections, in both elections, the Republican campaign committee tried to tie the Democratic candidate to Barack Obama. Here's the ad from the last campaign.
Travis Childers claims he's a conservative. But Travis Childers contributed money to John Kerry and is endorsed by Barack Obama, who has the most liberal voting record in the U.S. Senate.
Are you going to continue that strategy? If it didn't work in 2 of the most conservative districts...
It didn't work in Louisiana.
It didn't work in Louisiana either.
It didn't work in Mississippi.
Those are 2 of the most conservative districts in the country.
Right. Whether it's going to work in some campaign or not, that's not my decision. Listen.
Is it the right strategy?
We've got to prove to Americans that we can deliver real change on health care that'll cover all Americans, that will put Americans and their doctors back in charge of their health care, that we can produce an energy policy that will bring down gas prices, that we will do something about creating more jobs here at home and helping our economy, and making sure America is safe and secure.
Congressman Davis suggests that one of the things you could do is to go back on your opposition to expanding the Children's Health Program. He suggested that was a real killer for House Republicans. Can you work with the Democrats to get that passed before November?
We expanded the S-CHIP program when we extended it for 18 months, made sure that we covered children that was intended to cover. Listen, what the Democrats wanted to do was they wanted to cover adults, wanted to cover illegal immigrants, and wanted to raise taxes to pay for all of this. I think the state children's health insurance program is aimed at children, and 88% of those on the program in Minnesota were adults.
But the Republicans got tagged with being opposed to it.
No. When you look at the polling on this, we stood up on principle to do the right things for the right reasons. Make sure that we insure poor children first. And frankly, I think that we did the right thing. We won that fight, and we won it because we stood up and showed the American people that we're willing to do the right things for the right reasons.
The Democrats are having some fun at your expense this week because they look at your slogan, "Change You Can Deserve," and say that's a slogan for Effexor, an antidepressant. Here was Congressman Steny Hoyer, your counterpart.
Change You Deserve, of course, is a trademark for an antidepressant. It does have side effects. It can make you sick. 82% of Americans have indicated they're sick and tired of the policies that have been pursued by the Bush-Boehner administration.
Shouldn't you have seen that coming?
Listen, I could have used an antidepressant last week, I can tell you. But that's got nothing to do with the job that we have to do to show the American people that we can deliver a real change here in Washington. And I think our members and our candidates are going to be prepared this fall to do just that.
But how do you do it then? You've got Democratic majorities in both the House and the Senate. President Bush, you've been opposed to him on the Farm Bill. It doesn't seem like the issues that you're talking about right now that he's going to have the kind of vote to get this through
George, he's
either.
not on the ballot. You want to keep looking in the past. We need to look ahead.
President Bush is the past.
John McCain appeals to almost all Republicans, a broad swath of independents and conservative Democrats. John McCain at the top of the ticket will help us. But we also have to show, as Republicans in Congress, that we can really deliver for the American people.
But how do you do that?
We've got to work hard. You know, when my members want to moan and groan, I understand it. But things haven't been real happy for them, losing 3 special elections. But we all have to look in the mirror. We all have to decide, all right, what are we going to do today in order to show the American people that we're serious about doing the kind of things that they want done.
And what's the number one thing you'll do coming out of that meeting on Tuesday to show that the Republican caucus in the House has changed?
Well, I think what we're going to do Tuesday and Wednesday is deliver our energy policy. Here's what we would do if the American people would honor us with the majority. We're going to deliver a real energy policy that will reduce gas prices.
Finally, sir, Congressman Vito Fossella, a member of your conference from Staten Island, was arrested for drunk driving earlier this month. It turned out in the wake of that that he had a second family here in Northern Virginia. When the story first broke, you suggested that he should make a decision about staying in office very, very quickly and began calling possible replacements for his seat, yet he seems to be defying you.
Well, George, this is a very personal issue, and I think it's really between Vito, his wife and family, and his constituents. And I know that he's given an awful lot of thought about this over the last week or so, and he'll come to the right decision, along with his wife and his family.
Have you talked to him?
I have talked to him.
And have you asked him to step down?
Like I said, this is a personal issue between he and his wife and his family. They need to decide.
But isn't that a political issue also for your conference? I mean, you've seen that this could first of all cost you a seat George, there, given his troubles.
George, as you can well imagine, this has been a very difficult time for his wife, his family, his constituents, and him. They need to resolve this themselves.
And they need to do it quickly?
They need to resolve it.
So you have no expectation of when he's going to make a decision or whether he's going to leave?
Listen, George, it's up to them. You know, they've got to deal with the problems that they're dealing with. It's a personal issue, and they ought to resolve it.
So you're not worried about what it's going to mean for the Republican conference?
I'm sure that they'll resolve it in a way that's satisfactory for them and for us.
Congressman Boehner, thanks very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.